one of us to work full-time in the movement, which didn't always bring in a salary.
I'm very pleased to be at the home of Mina Meyer and Sharon Raphael. It's a privilege to be able to chat with you in your home. I'm talking with him about the recent passage of Proposition 8 and the implications of that. I was privileged to attend their last wedding this summer. And when did that take place, Mina?
August 24th.
August 24th.
2008.
Right. And so you were one of the couples that were able to take advantage of the law that opened up marriages between May and November of 2008.
One of 18,000.
18,000.
Couples, yeah. 36,000 people.
Obviously the two of you are very committed to each other, and I'm wanting you to tell the story about your long friendship that has led to the second or third time now that you guys
Well, we got married on our 37th anniversary.
37th anniversary that you've been
Yes.
together as a couple.
Yes.
But there's a story before that, isn't there?
Yes.
Well, Mine and I grew up on the same street in Cleveland Heights, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
And we met when I was 4.5 and Mina was about 5.5. And we were good playmates for years. And then Mina's family moved a couple streets away, and because we weren't in the same classes, we kind of drifted apart for about 20 years. About 20 years later, when we were in our, I think we were both in our early, I was 30, and Mina was 31.
Right.
We ran into each other at a breakfast place in Hermosa Beach.
Where we had both moved.
Wow.
In California.
Yeah, and I recognized mine. I'm really good at faces. And I said, "You remember me? I'm Sharon Raphael. I used to live across the street from you on Raymont Boulevard." And she looked, because I was now a woman,
Sure.
not a girl. And she said, "Of course I remember you." And then from there it took off.
Uh-huh. And so the two of you have been together in your working life, and now both of you are semi-retired. I don't think that either one of you have it in you to retire, but I'm curious for people to know about the work that each of you have done. Sharon, why don't you start?
Well, I'm a college professor. I teach at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills in Carson, which isn't that far from where we live in Long Beach. And I'm a professor emeritus of sociology. I probably should say professor emerita, but that's what they gave me.
Okay.
Emeritus. And I've been teaching there since 1970.
Uh-huh.
Since 1970.
Uh-huh.
And
Are you still teaching a class or two a year?
yeah, I teach 2 classes a semester.
Good, good. And Mina, your work during these years that you've been together?
Well, it has varied, but we've been very committed to the movement, the lesbian and gay LGBT movement, and we made a decision early on that it was more important to work for one of us to work full-time in the movement, which didn't always bring in a salary,
Sure.
but we would rather do with less than money and put our energy into the movement. And so during...
But that's been a whole series of commitments, your work with various other groups as well.
Yes, and at the moment I'm a co-director of an organization, a national organization called Old Lesbians Organizing for Change, otherwise known as OLAC, and that's really a very full-time commitment and a nonprofit organization, and that keeps me very busy. It's a group for lesbians over the age of 60, and that keeps me very busy.
Right.
And
but this is on the series of a whole bunch of political work that you've done with other groups as well.
yes.
Can you just name some of them?
Well.
I can. Oh, let's see. It's the first organization we worked with in the movement was called the Gay Women's Service Center, which was the first social service organization geared toward gay women in the country, and that was a really it was inspirational experience. I think it got us going in the right direction
In the early 70s.
because we had such a cross section of people that we worked with, and we learned all together. We were all very naive and just coming out, and
that was
it opened up a whole world of people to us. I mean, that's when we met all the early pioneers of gay liberation and learned from them and moved on.
We went from there to Gay Community Services Center before they added the word lesbian to their name, and worked there with them for several years, and started a lot of the women's programs there, and was on the board there and I ran all the women's programs at that time in their early life, and there are too many organizations to name that we were.
Well, it bespeaks a whole life of commitment to helping others to find their identity and to receive the social services that were so necessary and so absent.
Yes, and for many years now we've been focusing on old age and focusing on older women in particular, older lesbians in particular, but also the whole aging process for lesbians and gay men, and looking at that. I did some of the early research work and in that area when I did my master's thesis in that area and opened that up.
So we're now in 2009, at the moment after the November 2008 elections. There was a Proposition 8 that was put on the ballot, and it was successful, largely on the background of a lot of fear campaigns, misinformation, and that's of course what we see in the public eye, but I'm curious if you could tell us something about how you or other people you know have been impacted by the passage of this draconian measure that has taken away your civil rights and has taken away so much dignity. How are you responding to this?
Well, we've been fighting it, obviously, in many ways. We've been fighting it economically. We've donated money from the get-go, I mean, before it passed and since. We took to the streets. We were amongst those who marched and who protested. At the time, I had several injuries. I had an injury to my legs, and there I was with a walker, and it didn't stop me going out with a walker and marching in Long Beach after it passed. And I think of it now and I have a smile on my face, but it's serious business.
Sure.
It's very serious business, and it's just we pay our taxes. We live not in many ways not a whole lot differently than a lot of other people live, and it's ridiculous in this day and age that our lives and our relationships shouldn't have equal rights as everyone else. It's not fair, it's not equitable, and it's not right, and it needs to change. And the majority of younger people are certainly voting with us. And it seems when they did the looking at the who voted with us and who didn't vote with us, it was unfortunately only older people over 60 or 65 who voted against us, and only the very religious, the religious right, who voted against us. And so
I was told by some friends that there were some people who voted yes on 8, being confused, thinking that would help us.
Right.
So that there was a segment that just didn't understand how to vote, just like what happened in Florida. And I was very angry that when I learned that we lost by 2%, because I was very upset with the kind of ad campaign that was run by the people that were running, the establishment campaign against 8. I thought it was a weak campaign, and there were a lot of us who all along the way were very disturbed by that campaign. We felt they kept putting parents of gay people on. They very rarely, and they showed, hypothetical people running around trying to get married, but not LGBT people, not lesbians and gay men, in real life. And I feel like if there's more known about us in real life, and also we should be given the power to communicate directly to the public. And I think there was a closet factor with the people running the campaign, or I don't know who they were exactly, but in terms of, or what advice they were given by ad people. But it was the wrong advice and the wrong time to do that kind of a closet case approach to selling who we are. And when we got married, one of the things that happened is that we kept putting in our, I kept saying I was married on different legal documents. For instance, Kaiser has, for the first time, I filled out a questionnaire for Kaiser, and for the first time I could put down I was married. They said, "Are you single or married?" And I put down married. And then I started to think of all these places that I've been putting down I'm legally married, and if they were to take it away, this would really complicate a lot of legal papers that we've been filling out. And I think it would take a long time for the system to figure out what, up from down. I think that if this does pass, it's going to cause so many legal, if they maintain, Prop 8, I think it will really screw up the system.
Well, if the Supreme Court decides that our 18,000 couples, if they take away this marriage, it's going to really mess things up, because an awful lot has been done
already.
Sure.
We've done a lot as married couples and signed a lot of
legal
documents, and
contracts.
A lot of contracts, a lot of things have been done. And if they now decide that we're not legally married, that will really mess things up. And then at the same time, it would not be fair for us 18,000 couples to be married and nobody else to be allowed to be married. That would be inherently unfair.
Sure.
So I'm certainly hoping that they side with us and say that Prop 8 is unconstitutional.
In fact, you have a couple of documents that I think are not only personal interest but historic interest. One of them is a marriage license from the moment when several years ago San Francisco allowed there to be a.
Well, we did get married in 2004 in San Francisco, and here's that marriage license, and then
We've tried to get married
those were all found to be invalid shortly thereafter, and then here's our last year's license
In 2008.
In 2008, 4 years later, so. We hope this one is not invalidated. And they gave us a little fancy thing at the time.
Sure.
and then this is we had a photographer these may be too small to show, but we had a wonderful photographer,
You could hold that up.
Shoshana Lee,
Straight up.
who did our photography at our wedding. We had a wonderful wedding in 2008, and she did pictures for us, and she did a fabulous wedding pictures, and there's just too many pictures to open up to show
Right,
you.
but
We
it's
had a
wonderful.
great time.
But we
Yeah.
in 2004, we knew we had to just get up there, so there were no wedding pictures to speak of except
Oh, we
one.
do have-
Sharon, do you want to go get
Yeah,
that?
this-
That's a wonderful. We have one picture
From the
that was
2000.
taken. Bring that over.
I'm very proud of this. I'm very proud of this picture
Uh-huh.
taken in front of City Hall.
City Hall.
Because
This
we
is-
waited in line hours
we
and in the
waited-
rain.
This is in 6 hours in the rain in front of City Hall in San
To get
Francisco
married.
in 2004. So this is our only wedding picture
From that event.
And that was a very
2004.
Yeah, it was a very exciting event because,
Yeah.
well, we were actually married by one of the city councilmen in San Francisco,
Yes.
and the mayor Gavin Newsom was just so charismatic during, and all his staff people at City Hall were so nice
Let
to
me put
us.
this down.
Yeah,
Sure.
we had a great. It was a different kind of wedding.
It was very political.
Movement,
Yeah.
a movement wedding.
So your lives together in some ways have spanned the whole struggle.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
Well, not the homophile struggle.
Well,
The gays.
the struggle for gay liberation, we
Yeah.
definitely were involved
From the
throughout
beginning.
the beginning of gay liberation,
Sure.
and it's been exciting times.
Yeah. But I'm also curious for you to take a moment now and look to the future. I mean, in March, the Supreme Court of California is going to hear this issue.
Yes.
And curious for you to sort of reflect on maybe the legal issues if you have an opinion, or even on just the personal issues. I sense that the sense of concern that all the work that you've done to cement your relationship in the way that all married couples do with insurances and with shared property and things like that are a tremendous advantage that is given to couples in our society. And you two have sought in every way to build your life together, and you're facing the possibility that a Supreme Court might throw out not only the 18,000 marriages, yours included, but also might decide that gay and lesbian marriages are not marriages. How do you react to that?
To be totally truthful, it's a much more emotional reaction for us than it is anything else, than it will be for most couples. I think that we're an exception in that we got together at a time when neither of us had anything. So when we started to accrue things, we put everything together. So from the very get-go, everything is in both our names. Mm-hmm. And our insurances, our cars, our home, everything was always put in both our names. And so economically, it actually doesn't affect us. Mm-hmm. And that we are a rarity
that we know of,
that we're aware of.
That we know of yet.
And this won't affect us federally. So, and that's the big get.
We still won't have federal rights.
What we're waiting for is Social Security to change. That would make the big difference, because there's still 1,147 or whatever that figure is, areas where we're discriminated against in the federal laws. And until that changes, we are discriminated against. And so until the federal laws change, that's there's no difference. So for California, but it's one step at a time. I mean,
Right.
I think that that in that way, it's important for that first step to be there. So if California recognizes our marriages, and if we're legal here, and enough other states have it legal, I think then we get to grounds where if enough states do that, then I think the federal laws, they're more apt to change the federal law. Then we're more apt to have our new president maybe at some point say we have to do something there. But if there aren't enough, if only one or two states have LGBT marriages on their books, there's less incentive for them to do anything about it federally. So in that sense, it's more important, both economically as well as emotionally. But it hurts. It just hurts that, you know, it hurts that we're not legal if that should be taken away. You know, it's that.
Sure.
One thing I know is that younger people, younger than us, were really thrown for a loop by the passage of Prop 8, even more so than the two of us. And they took to the streets, and we followed them into the streets, but they went out there first. And it's really amazing how you can get in touch with their rage, because they weren't that aware of all these things we did before to make it easier for LGBT people, and they've benefited. A lot of younger gay people have benefited from the work of gay liberationists, and we're not as, you know, it's like, well, we won, and then everything's going to be fine. And then when they felt they weren't even being treated like a human being, that's what they kept saying. They don't even think we're human beings. We don't have, I want to get married someday. I heard some of these 18, 20-year-olds saying in the streets, and you can't take, you know, I want to get married. And they kept, and I was like, the intensity that I heard over that 2-week period when we were protesting all over the country. They were protesting in states that don't have the slightest chance of getting a marriage proposition passed, at least not in the short run. There's something going on, a new generation. This has brought out a new generation, and I'm so happy that they're going to replace us, or have already replaced us in many ways.
I want to thank the two of you for inviting me into your home, and we appreciate very much your taking the time to put faces to this issue.